Have you ever been on a walk with someone and at the end of it, you're like, wow, I didn't know this about them at all? Well, that is the point of Walk and Talk, a podcast where we walk and talk about their lives, their stories, and what makes them them. So join me and my guest every week as I walk and talk with a different person, getting to know them on a deeper level. Welcome to Walk and Talk. My guest today is Lee McClure. So welcome. Thank you for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Lee, tell us a little about yourself.
So my name's Lee McClure, and I've been married for about 21 years to my wife, Robin. We have 3 kids. So my oldest is Presley. She's 16. Then I have a son, Boston, who's 13. My son, Lincoln, is he's 10, about to be 11. I grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico, but been born in Fort Worth, and I consider myself a Texan for sure. Let's see, how far back do you want to go?
That's
okay.
Good.
All right, good introduction. Okay.
So I grew up in New Mexico a little bit.
That's right.
Not in Hobbs, more in the Clovis area.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, people are very big on, you got to be a Texan. Like, you got to say it. Like, you get that license plate, and they're like, you got to claim you're a Texan now.
That's right.
And so...
We're pretty proud here.
Yeah, and that's good. So how long did you live in Hobbs? I think you graduated from Hobbs?
Yeah, so I believe we lived in Hobbs from my 6th grade year all the way through my freshman year of college.
Okay.
Went to the NMJC my first year of college.
There we go. I almost went there.
Yeah.
It's a good little college. So, in college, I believe you went to Wayland Baptist.
Yep, I did.
How early on did you know, and for those that don't know, Lee used to be a pastor at a couple different churches. Last one was E-Life. How early on did you know that was where you wanted to go in your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I was actually 15. So
wow.
I was a freshman in high school. I was at a camp called Silver Cliff Camp in Colorado.
Okay.
And towards the end of that camp, I felt a very strong calling from the Lord to go into ministry when I graduated. And I specifically knew it'd be youth ministry.
Okay.
Youth ministry just had such a big impact on my life. My parents got divorced when I was 2. My stepdad died when I was 12 of cancer. And I was just in a period of, being somewhat lost and broken, and had a real encounter with the Lord as a 12-year-old when my stepdad died, that I felt the presence of God very strongly. And then I was really kind of adopted by some really great spiritual men that mentored me as a middle school and high school student.
Okay.
And so it just set me on course that I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. And where did you meet Robin at? Because is she from Hobbs, or is she from, I believe she's from Lubbock, isn't she?
She's from Shallow Water.
Shallow Water.
Yeah, this is an interesting story. This takes a little bit of preface here.
Okay.
Before I get into the weeds here. But my sophomore year of college, I was rebelling against the Lord, you would say. I mean, I wasn't really going to church. I grew up in very progressive, contemporary churches, cutting edge, growing, thriving. And then I went to Plainview, and it just felt like I couldn't find a church from what I was used to. And so instead of being mature and just growing where I was at and planting myself somewhere, I just didn't go.
Okay.
I was waiting tables at Cotton Patch. I met this girl, and I thought she was really cute. And I'm not talking about my wife yet, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving a little bit of background.
Okay.
So I thought she was really cute. We went on our first date, and I immediately knew she wasn't a match for me, but we ended up dating a year.
Oh.
And so what I mean by that is she wasn't a believer, which was completely against what I knew was the right thing to do. But I thought she was cute. We started dating, and I just formed a really strong bond and connection with her.
Okay.
Anyway, I say all that to say that eventually the Lord called me to end that relationship. And I fell madly in love with Jesus. I started sending my resume all over West Texas to be a youth pastor. And I ended up in Shallow Water.
Okay.
So when I went to Shallow Water and interviewed, I felt very strongly this is where I need to be. They felt strongly the same way. Sorry, we have a car coming. I want to get hit. That's what you do when you walk and talk. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, I felt a real close proximity to God. I went a year without dating a girl, without really talking to anyone, and I was a youth pastor at First Baptist Shallow Water. I was 20 years old. My wife, currently, the only wife I've ever had, by the way.
Okay, just checking.
My wife, Robin, was actually a senior in the youth ministry that I was a part of. So I was 20, she was a senior. And I was so in love with Jesus, and really had very strong boundaries and parameters. And I didn't view any girl in any inappropriate way, none of that. But whenever my wife went to college, I was hanging out with some of those guys. You know, they're all seniors, or they're all freshmen in college now. We went to a Texas Tech football game, and we're walking up to the stadium, and she kind of loops her arm in mine for a minute.
Oh.
And I'm like, holy cow, what's going on here? Because I was always so guarded.
Yes.
And that's when, for the first time, I thought, this is interesting, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this idea.
Yeah.
Then about 2 weeks later, she called me and said, hey, tell me more about the coffee. Okay, so we went from there to the coffee shop afterwards.
Okay.
Our group went from about 10 to 4 of us. We're at the coffee shop, and at one point our eyes connect.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, sparks, magic happen. And she, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm rambling on here.
No, I love it. This is good.
So she called me 2 weeks later and said, okay, let's talk about the coffee shop, because to me, it felt like something was going on there. And I said, listen, your family's awesome. You're awesome. You're definitely the type of girl I could see myself marrying. But Robin, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this idea. Like, I was your youth pastor. It's weird. Like, I just don't know that I can get there. But I said, I tell you what, let me get some wisdom and talk to some people and get some good counsel from others. So talked to my pastor, talked to her dad, who is one of my youth workers, actually.
Okay.
Talked to her sister, who was in my youth ministry. And everybody I talked to was like, I've talked to like 5 or 6 people. Everyone I talked to said, Lee, she's out of the youth group. What's the problem? Like, go for it. She's awesome. And so we with everybody's blessing, we started dating. 5 months from then, we were engaged.
Oh, wow.
5 months after that, we were married.
Wow.
So that was kind of a lengthy explanation there, but I can't just say she was in my youth group. Then it's like, okay.
Then I might have to go into a little more detail and be like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I get that being guarded. Like, as former teacher, like, it's weird. Like, you want to hug the kids because you love them. But then you realize, oh, I can't do that and I know that's a totally different thing than...
I became really good at side hugs. I don't know if you could do that as a teacher or not, but as a youth pastor, we were all about the side hug.
I didn't try it. I would do the high fives.
There you go.
And then especially when I walk into elementary, they're too short. So I'd be like, nope, high five, buddy.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Yeah, sadly, you want to love on these kids because you're not sure if they're getting love at home.
Mm-hmm.
And all they get hit with is a high five. So one thing I found when I was watching a video in service. I'm not a fan of in service. Have you done emails?
In service, what's that?
Teacher training.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And
yeah, I hate those days. Like, oh, great. The kids are out of school and now I have to watch our kids.
Yeah. In one of the videos, the lady was talking about make sure you say their name, because you never know how many times they're going to hear their name said at home. And so you want to always say, good morning, Xavier, something positive with their name, because you can be the only positive thing that they hear with their name all day. And so that really changed how I approached it with the kids.
That really makes me reflect on how I address my own kids. Actually, when you say that, okay, how many times are they hearing their name in a positive light at home versus me coming down on them, or,
right?
Saying something more negative or correcting them or whatever.
Yes, because you get home, tired from work, and kids are doing something, being kids, and you're like, no. And well, to that point, like my youngest, Blake, she loves to pray before every meal. And she will look at you if you start eating and forget to pray. And she'll be like, whoa, we got to pray. And she'll do her prayer. God is good, God is great. Let us thank him for this food every time. We're at Thanksgiving with my parents and my brother. Everybody's there. My dad's getting ready to pray, and he does his prayer. And I look up, and Blake's just like mean glaring him. A 2-year-old at the time.
Oh, man.
And they get done. I'm like, what's wrong, Blake? She's like, we didn't pray mine. And so I'm like, okay, everybody, hold on. Blake's got to pray. So it really like holds you like, man, my 3-year-old can remember to pray, but I can't.
Yeah.
And so kids are funny. I love them. Sometimes they drive you insane, but it's worth it.
It is one of the hardest, most, one of the most selfless jobs.
Yes. Well,
thankless.
It's funny because every night we read a story to Blake, and we go say our prayers, and then she wants to lay with somebody to fall asleep. And I'm always over there like, I want to do it. She's like, no, I want mama. And there's some nights where Lauren's working late, and I'm like, okay, you want me to lay with you? No. I'm like, well, no one else is here. She's like, no. I'm like, wow. But you come to me in the morning.
Yeah.
To make you food.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
So kids are funny, and they will keep you humble.
Oh, yeah.
So from shallow water, you went to...
Yeah, so I was the youth pastor in shallow water for 6 years.
Okay.
My 7th year there, I was the associate pastor. So I stepped out of youth ministry, went through a huge identity crisis. I had so much of my identity wrapped up in being a youth pastor.
Okay.
And I felt like I did it at a really high level. I was making a really large impact. And I just didn't know who I was not doing youth ministry.
Yeah.
So part of my job as associate pastor was I oversaw all the discipleship, Sunday school, small groups,
okay.
And, helped the pastor with lots of different things and would teach on occasion. But then also one of my big responsibilities that year was to start a new church in Plainview.
Okay.
I had a huge vision for Plainview because, there wasn't a church I connected with. And so I wanted to start one. Our pastor had that same vision. He went to Wayland as well.
Okay.
And so we started a church called Stonebridge Fellowship, and it lasted. I think they closed the doors this year.
Wow.
But it went on for, that was 2006. So it went a long time.
Yeah.
And really, we raised up leaders. We handed it off. And then I got the calling to go to Houston. So it was awful timing to start a church and then to leave. But we had great leaders in place.
So you went to Houston?
I went to League City.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So that's southeast Houston.
Okay. I did a little digging on your Facebook. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So League City, is that where you had your first kid?
So we found out when I got the call from the pastor in League City asking if we would consider interviewing for the high school position, the high school pastor position at their church. I told my wife, and she cried because we just found out we're expecting our first child. Oh. And she always envisioned being close to her parents.
Yes.
Whenever we had children. So she started crying. We moved there. We had our first kid, Presley. And then 3 years later, we had our second child, Boston. And then we made a decision that we were going to move back to Lubbock. We had several opportunities to come back. And we made a decision we're going to move back, and then we found out that we're expecting Lincoln. So we got to come home and have our third child here in Lubbock.
So comparing League City and Lubbock, I mean, I know they probably get more rain than us.
They got a lot more rain.
Yes.
That's why it's so humid over there.
Yeah.
What I loved about it is I never watered my grass once, and it was plush and green and looked amazing. It was like, our neighborhood was like living on a resort.
Oh,
The flowers, the palm trees, green grass, tons of trees. We had a lot of these huge ponds with fountains that had running trails all around them in our neighborhood. We loved living there.
okay.
Now, West Texas people are one of a kind,
Yes.
and we sure missed our West Texas people. But the people out there were amazing too. It just took a little more time to, get acquainted and get comfortable with one another. And a lot of the people that we became friends with worked at NASA.
Oh,
So
wow.
they were engineers. They worked on space stations. They did all kinds of
That's amazing.
stuff that was way above my head.
Yeah.
So I felt like they were on a very different intellectual level than I was.
I understand that. So, E-Life, that's where you came back to, right?
Yeah, so I came back to be a part of a church called Experience Life Church. And it's so odd because if anybody's moved to Lubbock in the past 6 years, they probably have not heard of it.
True.
But if they've lived here longer than 6 years, I feel like everybody's heard of it.
Yes.
It's the weirdest thing because E-Life was the largest church in Lubbock, as far as I recall.
Yes.
It was reaching thousands of people. We were a church that was, I think when it ended as a church, it was maybe 12 years old, and it had we baptized, or I think at our 10-year marker, we baptized 12,000 people.
Wow.
I think at one point, 2 years, we were the second fastest growing church in the nation.
Wow.
So we were reaching thousands of people. We grew really fast. And anyway, we changed strategies, and basically the church that we remember doesn't really exist.
Yes.
Now, E-Life still does exist. There's a handful of staff there. My brother-in-law is one of them.
Okay.
But what they're doing is really more church planning.
I think we'll let this big truck go.
Yeah. Training church leaders around the world into house church movement strategies.
Okay.
So they've done a lot of training and talked to a lot of church planners around the world that are seeing these big movements happen. They became very experienced in how that works, and they began training other leaders. The lead pastor wrote a book called From Mega Church to Multiplication. It really got a lot of traction.
Okay.
And because of that, those handful of people that are still around are really involved in training people in disciple-making movement principles. And they're very involved in the prisons here in the Lubbock County Jail as well.
So they're kind of like New Testaments, writing letters to the churches, setting up small ones, if that makes sense. Corinthians.
Yeah, so basically they thought that what we had concluded as a leadership team when I was at E-Life is that there's a ceiling to this kind of model. We were making a tremendous impact, but we couldn't possibly reach everybody in West Texas with this kind of model because we wouldn't. You need big buildings, and you need professional staff, and you need lots of money to do the kind of church that we did. It's a very attractional model. We had the full band. Some would say it's like going to a concert.
Yes.
We had really great teaching. We were on television. And we had a big presence. I think at one point we had 10 campuses maybe, all over, in some in Lubbock, and then others on the outskirts of Lubbock, one as far as Plains.
Yes.
So anyway, it's just really bizarre to be a church that was so prominent that everybody knew of, and if you've been here in the past 5 years, you never heard of it. It's the weirdest thing.
Yes. Well, it's funny because that's where I first saw you.
Oh, okay.
Was
Yeah,
at
that's right.
E-Life. And then fast forward a little, again, at an open house.
Mm-hmm.
And for listeners, Lee McClure is like a private detective. I gave him the fake email, fake number, and yet he still found a way. So you can't hide from Lee, guys. So back to E-Life,
I have
sorry.
my tricks, yeah.
So then you felt real estate.
Yeah.
And that had to be a little different.
Yeah, so if anybody's interested, how do I make that turn? I knew that I was all in on the house church strategy. Now, one thing I didn't know is I really thought the house church strategy was something we were going to funnel or steer our faithful members to.
Yes.
But what happened is they abandoned the old model altogether and began to really push the house church model, and people weren't on board. They didn't have time to adjust to that kind of transition. But way before that, at the peak of E-Life, I chose to leave because I was all about the house church model.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a part of it. And I was going to raise support. So I was going to raise funds for somebody to support my salary so I could just focus on church planning.
Yes.
And the lead pastor, and I think he was right. He encouraged me to not raise support, but he encouraged me to get a career so I can identify with the people the lay people are the carriers of this movement.
Yes.
House church movements. So for me to better identify and relate to and connect with business owners and people who are not professional pastors, who are the ones leading these house church movements, he thought it'd be better if I had a different career.
Okay.
And which brought a lot of anxiety.
I imagine.
I mean, if you remember, I was 15 when I was called to ministry.
Yes.
I was groomed up for it. I was trained in it. I was educated in it, and I had lots of experience at it. And I felt like I was in a position that I was really tailored for.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I have to think about doing something different.
Yes.
So I spent about a week. Well, they wanted me to stay on a year, raise up a replacement. I raised up one faster than that. In about 6 months, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I just, at some point, you feel disobedient when you feel like your heart's calling you to do something else.
Yes.
You can't linger there forever.
Yes.
And I got to that place where I couldn't do it anymore. So I went ahead and took the step of faith. I gave a resignation date, but I didn't know what I was going to do yet. And so I was praying and fasting very intently one week. And a friend of mine, Tannen Nauert, was with me. We were going to a Texas State football game. My wife was in the back seat, I believe. We're going to a Texas State football game, and I just told Tannen, I said, man, hardly anybody knows this, but I'm resigning from E-Life. I need a new career. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I have a wife and 3 kids and a mortgage. And I said, I need you to pray with me that the Lord will show me what I need to do next. And so we pray in the car. We're walking up to the stadium for the football game. And then we veer off to a tailgate because we both see some people over there we know in common. And as I'm talking to some of the people there, one of them is Jennifer Colley, who is an agent, a real estate agent. She was part of our congregation, and we were more of acquaintances. I didn't know her well. But for some reason, the Spirit prompted me to ask her about real estate. And man, she began to go on and on and on about how awesome real estate was and how she thinks I could do it and how she just knows with certainty I'd be good at it and I would make an impact. And so I left that conversation. I looked over to my friend Tannen. I said, Tannen, the Lord answered your prayer, man. I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to be a realtor. So that's kind of how all that came into be.
And you've been in it 7 years now.
I think it's been 6.
6 years.
Yeah.
But you can see, like, you're trusting God. It led you. You prayed about it. And now God's just blessing you for following. And so it's funny, when I was talking to Stace and I talked to my wife about following and diving head first, Good. How about you? I look at my wife and I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of you. And then I look back at myself, I'm like, did I do that? Did I? And so you can see, like, there's examples all around us of people just trusting God and how amazing God is. If you follow him, he's got the plan for you. He may let you stumble along the way to learn something, but he's still there.
Yeah.
And so it's just amazing to watch and hear your journey of trusting and switching, because from 15, you knew. And then all of a sudden God said, nope, I got a different plan for you.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how God does that.
Yeah.
You're like, I got my life figured out. And then here's that door.
Sure.
It happened to me in education. I thought I knew I was going to be a teacher until I retired. And God one day just said, I'm going to put this feeling on you. Get out. And it's like overwhelming anxiety. Like,
Sure.
all you know is that job you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, the Lord did not call you or me into profession where you have a salary
Yes.
and you know what you're going to make with great benefits,
Yes.
right? And the security of any of that.
Yes.
I mean, we both stepped into a profession that's 100% commission based.
Yes.
So some people want to give us a hard time about what we make, but they don't know how much time we work for free.
Yes. And sometimes my wife will look at me, she's like, you good? I'm like, yeah. But on the inside, I'm like, no. But then you just remember, God's got this.
Dude,
like,
I don't know anything more faith building than this career.
Yes.
I mean, it is all on, I mean, you can't carry it on your shoulders. It will lead to dark places.
mm-hmm.
You really have to give it up and trust in his provision.
Yes. And then it's like, I always look back at my wife for starting her business, and she just leaned on him. And then I'm looking at myself like, am I leaning on you, God, during this step? Am I leaning on you? Am I doing what she did? And so it kind of checks you. And then you just get that random text of, hey, I need you to come look at this. And you're like, oh, I am leaning on God.
Yeah.
So it's fun. So let's switch a little to kids.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 daughters. You have 1 daughter and 2 boys. Easier to raise, daughter or boy?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
And I don't mean that they're bad kids.
sure. I'm going to hope that my kids don't hear this.
Oh, they might. We're going viral.
So our daughter Presley, and I think it's a firstborn thing,
Yes.
but she is very easy.
Okay.
She makes great decisions. She's very mature. We never ever have to ask her if she has homework or ask her to do something that's her responsibility. She's very responsible. And she just makes our life easier. She's very helpful around the house. She helps cook and helps do the dishes and does things unsolicited many times.
Yes.
Our boys, and they fight and they scrap, and they are a little more argumentative and just a little more challenging. So neither my wife or my daughter are very high maintenance girls too.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say that they're more expensive. I think my son Boston will probably be the most expensive. He cares the most about what people think.
Gotcha.
He's also probably going to be the one that's the most popular. He just cares more about that. And he has so many friends and people love him.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, that's how my oldest daughter, Chloe, sometimes we forget, like, she's there because she just does stuff. And you're like, oh, Chloe, do you need anything? Like, we haven't asked you in a while. Because she's the oldest.
Sure.
She's a girl. I think girls just get it faster than the boys. Nothing against boys. But it's give and take for me. Like, there's some stuff girls are easy with, and then other stuff I'm like, I don't know how to help you here. Well, and that's where I just go, Lauren, come do your mother thing.
I never did master the ponytail. I mean, yeah, I gave up on that right away.
Well, Blake doesn't even let me do her hair unless it's the last option. and it's mostly a ponytail, kind of. And then I get to school, and I look at the teacher, I'm like, if you want to change up the hair, go ahead. So they make it look so easy, though. They're just like,
I know.
and done. I'm like, slow down, show me how you did that. So kids are fun. And your daughter's into acting. Does she sing too, or?
She has a great voice, but she does not like people to hear her sing.
Okay.
She will sing with a group of people, but she will not, like, I really want her. She's getting big into acting.
Okay.
She loves musicals, but she loves to be one of the back, like the dancers in the background, the ensemble. Or whatever.
Yes.
But I want her to be stretched to sing. And I think that the more she advances in theater, the more she's going to be challenged to sing, because she really does have it all.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
See, Chloe, she's into the instruments, the bass. And I always like that, like Emmett's into sports because, well, I like sports. But I also love to go watch Chloe play the instrument. You sit in that theater and listen. I know for her it's not stressful. I mean, for her it is stressful. For me it's not, because I just get to listen to this beautiful music.
Yeah.
And I just think, wow, I'm glad I have this variety of sports and then music.
Yeah.
And so I always find it interesting when we're going about our lives, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I got a daughter that does this music.
Sure.
And it's funny because she'll be playing her bass at home and practicing, and sometimes like something will go wrong in the house. Normal stuff, or me and Lauren are in a little fight, and all of a sudden you hear like Chloe playing the bass, and it's like theme music to our fight, and you're like, how is she doing this? So it cracks me up.
That's funny.
So
Joey McGuire's house over there, by the way.
Oh, red pot.
Yeah, it's like on 3 different lots.
So I did creep on your Facebook. You went skydiving.
I did when I turned 40.
How is that?
Oh, dude, it was amazing. There is nothing on this planet that I've ever experienced that compares to it. I mean, it was one of those adrenaline rushes that for days, that's all I could think about. I had a hard time engaging almost with people because all I could think about was that experience. It just kept recurring in my mind. The trippiest part is, one, you're sitting by this door, this window. It's like plexiglass almost. And when they open that thing up, you realize I've never been in an airplane before with the door open.
Yeah.
And then you put one foot over another over the ledge.
Oh.
And then you scoot to the edge. And then it's that process of jumping. And when you jump out of the plane, I think we flipped about 3 or 4 times before we leveled out.
Oh man.
And I had to tell myself, I remember saying, open your eyes, don't miss this, because you just want to like curl in the ball and close your eyes and you would miss the experience. And so I had to like coach myself up to like, hey, open your eyes, experience this, watch this. And then of course, when you open the chute, when you open the chute, it's peaceful.
Okay.
But it comes down a lot faster than you would think. And he gave me a chance to steer the chute, and I just was too nervous about it. I thought for some reason I would put us in a tailspin or mess us up, so I didn't even want that responsibility. But it was cool, man. I went with my brother, one of my best friends at the time, and my youth pastor, or my mentor, who was my previous youth pastor. We all did that together. It was pretty awesome.
So would you do it again?
Oh, and Clayton too. Clayton Walker, the pastor of the city church, which is where we're currently attending.
Okay.
He went with me as well. I would definitely do it again.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, my daughter wants to do it when she turns 18.
Oh, what's your wife say about that?
She, I think she's okay with it as long as she doesn't have to do it.
Okay. So are you a little afraid of heights, or no, you're good with heights? And then,
man, I see those towers right there, those cell towers.
Uh-huh.
When I was in college, I'd find stuff like that all the time and climb it.
Okay.
I loved climbing buildings, climbing anything I could, climbing stadium lights, stuff that we don't want kids to hear about right now, but I loved climbing stuff. Getting down was always the part when I'd freak out a little bit.
Yes.
Water towers.
See, I think that's a New Mexico thing.
I think we were just bored. We just looked for something to do, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I climbed our water tower in house.
Yeah.
With my friend and my cousin, and all the seniors that graduated before us would tell stories. Yeah, we did it too.
No, really?
So I think it is a New Mexican thing.
Yeah,
I don't hear much about that in Texas. Like,
maybe so.
So, yeah. See, Chloe did wrestling for a year. And Lauren had never seen wrestling.
Yeah.
Besides, like, WWE. We could roll up to the match, and she's watching all these kids get just thrown on the mat. And then here comes Chloe. And she's never done it before. So proud that she did it. I love you, Chloe, for it, but she got beat. And Lauren is just like squeezing my arm. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. She's like, we're never coming back, and she's never coming again.
Yeah.
And so after the match, I was talking to Chloe. I was like, so what do you think? She's like, I like it. I'm not going to do it next year, but I'm going to finish the season. And Lauren's like, no. I was like, you got to let her. She's doing something.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was curious if Robin's like,
sure.
No, you don't get to go.
No. Now, one thing she has put her foot down on is me getting a motorcycle.
I can see
She
that.
said, you got to wait till our kids graduate high school. I'm not parenting these kids by myself. So once the kids graduate, apparently I can kill myself, and she's okay with it.
Have you always liked motorcycles, or?
I've always had a draw to them, yeah.
Just like,
but I'd want a cruiser. Like, I don't want a crotch rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to cruise and just be out. I love being outdoors. That's what I love about my Bronco. I could take the doors and the top off and enjoy being outside.
Yes.
So I would like to just cruise, you know? I don't know that I'd do big trips with it or anything, but.
I always thought about getting a motorcycle, just drive to work.
Yeah.
When I worked at Wilson, just get those good gas mileage.
Yeah.
And then there's those days where it's like cold. I'm like, oh no, I'm good.
Yeah, or windy.
Yes. Motorcycles. So are you good with cars? Like, can you work on them?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No.
I always tell my dad, I'm like, you should have taught us that.
Is he good at it?
No. He's like, you got YouTube now. You can YouTube it.
That's right. I have tried a few things through YouTube.
YouTube is amazing.
Yeah.
Hopefully no City of Lubbock people listen to this, but electrical work in my house, I had lights and light switches. YouTube.
Yeah. I have done a lot of electrical. I just do it in reverse order.
Yes.
Just look at it, take it off, and then I see, okay, I need to put it back on that way, you know?
Well, I don't know why. I just like to have the recess lights in our house. I feel like it just makes it so much better with dimmable, so you can just set that mood lighting. Because Lauren, I love her, but if she was watching TV with me, she's got to have a light on. We're watching Michigan football at night, she's got to have a light on.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And so I got those and put them on the lowest level, and she's like, I'm good.
Okay, that works.
But my brothers always make fun of me because every time they come to my house, they're always like, where's the newest light you added? So tech, was it hard going to Houston, not being able to go to tech games?
Well, you know, I didn't grow up a college football or college fan at all, really. I didn't watch college sports.
Okay.
I was a Cowboys fan. That was about it. When I started dating Robin, she made me a college fan. And football was easy because I loved football. That was always my favorite sport. And it was in an era when we were really good.
Yeah.
But since then, I've come along to where I enjoy watching basketball quite a bit. I watch a little bit of baseball. But yeah, tech football, I'm all in now, for sure.
Yeah, baseball's hard to watch on TV, but if you go to the stadium, I always enjoy that.
Especially a nice time like
Yes.
day like this. Not like this weekend when it was blowing 50 miles per hour.
We went to watch them play BYU, And it was a little chilly, but it was beautiful in there. And I like Tech. It's a good sized stadium, not too big, not too small, and they got good area for the kids to go get foul balls, because there was a lot of foul balls. Emmett spent like the whole game just away from us catching foul balls. And then Tech players, they wait and they sign them for you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You like hockey?
I have never followed hockey, but I've been to a few games, and it was awesome. It was fun. We went to, it was at the Arrows in Houston.
Okay.
And there was a shootout at the end.
Oh, yeah.
And of course the fighting. And I remember watching Cotton Kings a little bit too, whenever they were here. And you enjoy watching them get rough with each other.
Yes.
Start throwing punches and all of that. But the shootout that I was at, I don't know how common that is, but that was fun to watch.
Shootouts aren't that common, but they're amazing.
Yeah.
I love hockey. We're a Detroit family.
Okay.
Like Tigers, Lions, the Red Wings. We take a wrong turn.
I think this is a cul-de-sac on both sides.
So we have to go back this way?
Yeah.
And my dad would turn on a hockey and watch Red Wings. And then Colorado Avalanche would play, and that was the rivalry. I just remember thinking, man, these hockey players are amazing. They got this killer thing on their foot, and yet no one gets killed. And now I see it as it's like a cross between basketball and football. Just the
aggression of football
and the beauty of dribbling the
fast pace.
Yes. And watching them stop on a dime, and I'm like,
yeah,
I can't even get up on a skate to get. But y'all are out there just running like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And then the fights, just random fights that just break out. It is a beautiful day. Did you get to watch the eclipse?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yep. We started. I didn't realize that it was going to happen so slowly in a way.
Yes.
So we were out there, I think 1:35 when it was supposed to be at its peak or something. And we started looking at it around 12:45, and it was already starting to, come across, whatever. So it was kind of cool to watch.
I didn't understand like why this one was so different, but then I started looking at like it's because it went so far up the United States that I guess we haven't had that where everybody across the United States could see it at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I remember being in college and there was one.
Yeah.
I know I'm a little old, but that's like 15.
Wasn't there one like even just a few months ago or something?
And so I was like confused at why like this is like the huge eclipse of all time, and I'm like, pretty sure I've lived through a bunch of them.
Well, I didn't get into it, but I think there were some apocalyptic messages going around too.
Lauren sent me some TikToks about it with the blood moon.
Yeah.
Because there's an element on the moon that's turning it's like rusting it.
Yeah.
Turning it red, and so they were predicting it was going to be Jesus coming. And I was like, well, I ain't going to fight that. Jesus wants to come on.
But none of us will know when that day or hour is.
I know. But it was cool because did you see the ring outside?
Yeah.
And I was like, look, it's Jesus' eye looking down on it.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. Emmett came home. He's like, yeah, we got to lay on the grass and watch it. I was like, oh, so you didn't do any learning today?
Yeah.
He's like, we did about the solar system. And I was like, okay. So it was interesting. And it was also interesting because he was like, this is my first one I've ever experienced. I was like, oh, man.
Huh.
I didn't realize you hadn't experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably going to be a memory for some of those kids.
Yes. Well, and I spent the morning like running around trying to find the glasses.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Fortunately, Robin had some from Tech. I guess the administration got some or something.
Well, I forgot about it. Like I saw it in the stores, and then I'd be like, oh, I got time.
Yeah.
The next thing I knew, it was today, and I was like, oh, it's April already.
What I didn't understand is with the eclipse, you would try to take a picture with your phone, and it was still a round shape, the sun. I don't understand why it wouldn't pick up the. Oh, okay.
You are too. Yeah. I don't even know. I'm not even gonna. I don't even understand what happened. I know my cell phone service was all weird during that time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I was trying to call Lauren and it kept dropping, and I was like, it's millions of miles away. How is it affecting my cell phone service in Lubbock? But then I remember I live in Lubbock, and on a sunny day, the service is not very good.
That's true.
You know, you were mentioning your lawn in League City, how it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I looked at your lawn here. It's very green and thick and beautiful. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we use Green Pro.
Okay.
And they come out like every quarter, and they do everything they need to do. So I've never had to pull a weed.
Wow.
And whenever I bought that house in 2019, that's all it was, just weeds and dirt. That's it. And the weeds up to your knees, you know. And so they really did all that. And they changed the type of grass.
Okay.
That grows well under trees.
Yes.
And so it's really green most of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, even your neighbors, like, I was like, I'm in like the greenest area in Lubbock right now. Yeah, I was a little jealous.
I do like it. I do enjoy that.
Yes.
But I couldn't do it on my own. I don't have time to do that. I let the professionals do all the treatment so it looks that way.
Well, and there's just so much that goes into it. Like the chemicals, I'm like, just you guys spray it. It'll be cheaper in the end if you just do your job. Well, Lee, I want to thank you for coming on Walk and Talk.
Yeah, you bet, man.
I appreciate you sharing your story. That's what it's all about, just sharing your story, taking a nice walk, getting to know each other a little more. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Definitely a cool experience.
Let's not waste time. Take this slow. We've got miles behind us, but miles to go. So let's just break this down.